Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2022 World Championships of Rock Climbing. Wait a second. My apologies, my producer has informed me that was last weekend. This is in fact a recreational bouldering competition at the local climbing gym up the block. I'm your host, Hugh Jardon, and let's take a look at some of the basics of what we're going to see today. Rock climbing competitions are normally separated into three distinct categories. Number one, we have speed climbing, where, as the name implies, the goal is simply to climb a standard 50-foot wall as fast as possible. Oftentimes, competitors will actually race each other to the top of the wall. Lead climbing, where the competitor must climb as far as possible in a long and extremely difficult route. And finally, bouldering, where competitors must climb short but fiercely challenging routes without the aid of any equipment. This is the style for today's competition. This competition will be following a scramble format, meaning that all 60 competitors are free to attempt any routes they wish. There are a total of 30 different boulder problems on the wall in ascending difficulty, and to complete a climb, competitors must reach the final hold on the wall while only using the climbing holds of the same color. In addition, the competitor must place both hands on the final hold, and most importantly, they must show stability and control. Simply touching the final hold with your fingertips as you are falling off the wall does not count. Climbers will be scored based on the difficulty levels of the problems they complete and the number of attempts required to do so, with the options being 1, 2, or 3 or more attempts. That being said, only the competitors' 5 most difficult problems will go towards their final score. This means that quantity is not the name of the game, as we are specifically looking for the most challenging climbs. My producers are informing me that we are almost set to get underway here, and all eyes are on this man, Igor Opeshansky, aka VitruvianPhysique, getting ready in the stretching section moments before the competition begins. I am told this is in fact his first competition, and he is mostly determined to try and not completely embarrass himself. In the meantime, we'd like to take a minute to thank today's sponsor, MyProtein. Whether it be getting pumped up before or recovering after the competition, our competitors trust MyProtein for their supplementation needs, particularly their brand new line of protein, Whey Forward, the world's first whey protein made entirely without animals. Using a cutting-edge fermentation process, Whey Forward is made to be chemically identical to regular whey protein without the use of any cows. It looks the same, tastes the same, and most importantly, has all the benefits of traditional whey protein without the negative impacts on the environment and animal well-being. Whey Forward comes in 3 new and delicious flavors, and best of all, our viewers can get 40% off just by using the code and link in the description box below. And yes, it looks like the competition has officially commenced, so let's check in with VitruvianPhysique as he looks to make his first attempt. Starting off with route number 14 with a grade of V3. This is technically the strongest or the hardest V3 in the entire gym, well below Igor Opeshansky's usual climbing difficulty level. However, this is a common tactic some competitors use, sort of acting as a warm-up and just a way to get yourself actually on the board, get some easy points, and that was completed in one try. Nice little warm-up there. We call this in the climbing world a flash, as in you flashed it in one attempt. Jumping into our first V4 of the day, the warm-up is officially over, and now it is time to get a bit more serious. As you can tell, Igor is already starting to struggle a little there. First missed attempt of the day. You can tell right off the bat that this is a significant jump up in difficulty as opposed to what we just saw with the V3, namely because there really isn't that much to grab onto. These triangular pyramid-style holds, essentially all you have to do is grab onto them and try to increase the friction between the holds on your hands.
Okay, well, damn, that was hard.
The pyramids look really hard.
Yeah, because there's no, the only thing that grabs on is you just need to like friction and just, yeah.
Third attempt on this V4, and right off the bat he's already doing a somewhat different strategy, trying to get that left leg up. This is very different as opposed to last time when it was somewhat more dynamic. In the climbing world, dynamic is a lot more of an aggressive way of climbing, where you essentially use a lot of jumps, and essentially it's a little bit of a Hail Mary where you try to grab on as you jump up. This time around, everything is a lot more static, everything's a lot more slow, controlled, and he's never taking a foot off the wall without making sure that the rest of his body, his foot, and his hands are still connected to the wall, slow and controlled. That is a completed 3 attempts for route number 16, but still very happy to get on the board with a completed V4 this early into the event. Alright, in the meantime, let's go to our foreign correspondent, Dick Fitzwell, for an explanation of how climbing grades actually work. Take it away, Dick.
Right, so bouldering uses something called the V-scale, where essentially ascending values are given to climbs of increasing difficulty. Now, most of the problems in this competition will probably fall somewhere in the range of V3 to V9. However, to make things a little bit more simpler for you guys, we have decided to do a frame of reference, sort of a comparison for the bench press. And essentially using standardized strength standards, these are essentially what you'd expect for an average bench press. In this case, assuming for a 190-pound male in comparison to their corresponding V grades. So hopefully that makes things a little bit more simpler to understand. And if you didn't understand the V scale before, well, now you know.
Route number 15, this is yet again another V3 grade. It seems that Igor is actually going down in difficulty for this one. This is a common tactic used by some competitors just to sort of get on the board and sort of act as a little bit of insurance to get some easy points earlier in the competition. There have been times when competitors have actually failed to complete the 5 necessary climbs because in focusing exclusively on harder climbs, they spend so much time that if they never actually completed it, you know, going for V4s, 5s, and V6s, they actually might end up going home with a much lower score, having not actually completed the 5 minimum necessary climbs. So this is a good tactic by Igor just to be a little bit erring on the side of caution and get some easy points this early in the event. Next up, to make things a bit more interesting, it seems like Igor has decided to jump the gun a little bit, upgrading to Route 21. This is a V5 to V6. May I remind the audience that once again, these grades are subjective, but around a V5 to V6 seems to be the logical estimation for this route. Right off the bat, already having some difficulty with this. Immediately you can tell that this is a significant increase over what we just saw. One of the most challenging things about this route, which might be hard to see on screen right now, but the size of these holds are absolutely tiny. Many times you are trying to hold on with almost, if not all, your body weight on holds which only allow for a few millimeters of actual contact with your fingers. Oh, that was so close! That would have been a fantastic addition this early on in the event. Topping out with a V5, oh, potentially even a V6 would have been fantastic for the score sheet. And if I remember correctly, a personal best for Igor Opashansky, but alas, that did not work. He will be giving this another try. This is his 3rd attempt, if I remember correctly. Nope. It seems that those holds really are starting to get the best of him. One of the most difficult things about these routes, the way that you grab on them. As you can tell, that first initial hold that he is trying to reach, it actually faces sideways, meaning that you are essentially holding your body using a side pull as opposed to a traditional hold where you are grabbing it and pulling yourself up. Those side pulls definitely make this a significantly more challenging climb. Will he give us another attempt? It seems like no, at least not at this moment. Perhaps he will return to this at a later time. Next on the docket, we have Route 18. This is a V4 grade. I'm sure Igor Opashansky is definitely looking for a bit of a confidence boost, a bit of retribution after that last failed attempt. Right off the bat, kind of challenging start. He had to have his feet up pretty much almost at chin level. Definitely something that is not commonly seen in many of the starting positions for these climbs. The interesting thing about this route seems to be that although there is definitely a lot to choose from in terms of holds, they are not that good to grab onto. We call these pinch holds in the climbing community, and you need to just grab it as if you are grabbing one large brick and then squeeze it as much as possible in order to increase friction and actually hold onto the hold. And it looks like, yes, this will be a flash for Igor Opashansky. He is definitely happy about that. A little bit of retribution after that last failed attempt. He must be very happy about this one and the 4th completed climb of the event. Let's take a minute to check the scoreboard now. 2 successful V3s, 2 successful V4s, one of which is a flash. I'm sure he's very happy about that. And 1 failed, sort of a Hail Mary on that V5 to V6 route number 21. 4 climbs completed, just 1 shy of the minimum 5 required to officially get on the scorecard. Moving on, this is route number 19 with a grade of V4 to approximately V5. And right off the bat, you can tell that Igor Pashansky is somewhat struggling with this one, most notably because this is an overhang, which is actually one of his weaknesses. The difficulty with the routes like this, we call them overhang routes, is because instead of you climbing straight up like you do in traditional, more standard walls and rock climbing, you are climbing something which is actually angled towards you approximately. Oh, that was remarkably close actually, especially for a first attempt, getting his fingertips on the second last hold. That would have been a fantastic flash to add to his collection, but alas, he's going to have to give this one another try. The difficulty when it comes to overhangs is due to the angle, because the wall is actually angled towards you by approximately 30 to 45 degrees. You have to focus not just on vertically climbing up, you also have to try to keep yourself on the wall, which is why he has to, as you can see here, do things such as toe hooks and heel hooks. A lot more footwork is involved when it comes to overhangs just to keep yourself from swinging right off the wall like a pendulum, and he actually completes this one on his second attempt, a valiant effort. Well done. He is definitely happy about this one. This actually becomes the hardest climb completed to date so far in this event for Igor Pashansky, and he is definitely happy about this one. The 5th climb successfully completed. He is now officially on the scorecard and safe from not being able to complete the mandatory amount of climbs. At this point in the competition, the strategy does start to change somewhat, seeing as how you now are officially safe and you do have a score that you can submit for final placings. The strategy shifts now to trying to get a better score and trying to climb harder and harder grades. You can now see competitors switching to climbing, in this case, more V4s and potentially even pushing for some V5s in an attempt to substitute those higher grades, those higher scores, in place of some of the easier V3s that he completed earlier in the event. However, he is having some difficulty with this one, especially not knowing, it seems, where to put that right foot. He can't touch the blue holds as they are not part of the climb, and he's unfortunately unable to complete it. This is not going to be another flash for Igor Pashansky on this route number 16. You can tell he is somewhat disappointed in his performance on that one. I can tell he was definitely hoping to add to his collection of flashes, giving it another try. These holds are definitely somewhat difficult for Igor Pashansky because you can tell there's not much to grab onto. He has to get that left foot up very nice and high. That's where the additional flexibility comes in. In the climbing community, we call holds like these slopers because they're just, as the name implies, they are these large circular spherical objects, and he is not able to complete that one on his second attempt. And I'm told now that he is giving up on this one for the time being and may return to it at a later point in time. In the meantime, it seems he wants to save his strength for a different route. Moving on, this is route number 20 with a grade of V5. This would be a tie for the most difficult climb attempted by Igor Pashansky in this event so far. This one you can see somewhat difficult starting point. He actually had that right foot, had to kind of hook it underneath his left foot. And this one you can see kind of towards the top. One of the most difficult things going to be is using his hips and his glutes. A lot of people who may tune into rock climbing for the first time, they may severely underestimate how much actual lower body emphasis is involved. And oh no! No, his left foot, he touched the wrong hold. He's touching that purple hold. He doesn't even realize it, but this immediately disqualifies this attempt. If he finishes this one, it will not count because he is technically cheating using the wrong color hold. That is a bittersweet moment, but no, actually he's not able to complete it anyway in a way that is almost a blessing in disguise, because had he completed this route and incorrectly assumed he flashed it, his confidence, his motivation would have been unfortunately shattered after realizing that he indeed did not complete it. Fast forwarding now to his second attempt. Again, second attempt, he is not able to do so. It seems that that upper portion, that crux of the wall, the most difficult portion of the climb, that's what we refer to as the crux, up there, kind of that third, fourth final hold, it is definitely causing him some difficulty. And you can see it on his face. He is angry about that. He is disappointed in his performance about this one. His hips are definitely burning. His glutes are definitely somewhat on fire. Just trying to keep yourself on the wall, activating your glutes to squeeze your hips towards the wall can mean the difference between you being able to complete the route or not. Again, they are oftentimes very surprised at how much actual lower body emphasis, especially in the glute area, the glutes and hamstrings particularly, how much they are involved. Again, not able to complete that. That may be the fourth or fifth attempt for VitruvianPhysique, and you can tell he is definitely angry about his performance on this one so far. One of the really difficult things when it comes to these more difficult problems, the ones that take 7, 8, 9, 10 successive attempts, is it's almost sort of a double-edged sword, because as you are trying the route more and more, you are slowly starting to figure out the technique. You are slowly starting to figure out what we in the climbing community refer to as the beta, which is essentially when you know which hand to put on which hold, which foot to put on which hold in what order, and essentially you're almost building an internal mental set of instructions for how to complete the climb. The only problem is when you're doing so, usually you are simultaneously getting more and more tired, both in terms of cardiovascular endurance, in terms of physical endurance. Your muscles are aching, your fingers are starting to cramp up, so it's almost like a battle of which one's going to give out. Simultaneously, you're getting better at something, but you're also getting more tired at the same time. And Igor Bishansky is actually getting pretty close. This is the farthest he has ever been. You can tell he's really activating those hips and keeping them close to the wall. He's got his right hand. Can he move that left foot? Can he get that left hand on there? Can he hold it for 1-2 seconds? Yes, he can. He has finally completed it after what seems like almost 10 successive attempts.
Oh my god, my hips. It's just... You have to be like this ballerina doing this weird, like... You need to turn your hips like... Wow.
And as I'm sure he is very happy about his performance on that one, there does still remain one final V4 which he has yet to complete. This is problem number 16, which he tried approximately 30 to 40 minutes ago. He had, I believe it was 2 to 3 failed attempts on this one. He has returned after taking a little bit of time off, resting somewhat, giving those hands a much needed break. And he is determined to cross this last V4 off of the list. Again, very difficult. It's almost somewhat of a pistol squat. He's got to get that left foot fully extended in a very, very compromised and uncomfortable position. But if he can get that left foot up, sort of a pistol squat, it seems he can just barely, whilst trying to simultaneously keep his body actually on the wall. Watch that right foot. Oh, close. He was very close to accidentally putting it on that blue hold, which again would disqualify him from completing the rest of the route. Now he's got to get that right foot, potentially yet another pistol squat, extend it somewhat, giving him the final reach he needs to reach that final top hold, get his both hands on there, hold it for 2 seconds, and yes, he has completed it. The final V4 in this competition has finally been conquered, and I'm sure he's very happy to cross that final hold, or that final route off of his list. At this point, we have reached somewhat of an interesting portion in this competition because he has successfully completed more than the 5 required climbs, and he has gotten all the way up to 20. He's now going to start attempting more and more difficult routes. This one is a grade V5 to V6. It's sort of a Hail Mary because this is well above his normal climbing grade. And this one is extremely interesting because you almost have to put yourself in this weird wedge between 2 sets of climbing holds, these sort of large orange slice-shaped holds and wedge yourself in between them, almost horizontal, almost parallel to the floor. He's not able to complete that one, but this is definitely a style of climbing he is not familiar with, to say the least. You essentially need to climb up, keeping your feet on the left, your hands on the right, with your body nearly parallel to the floor, and horizontally move your way up the wall. But then to shift and sort of towards the second half, it's interesting, he's actually resting here. He's got his right shoulder just wedged in there, and he's trying to reach for it, but unfortunately he just needs a few more inches and is not able to reach that next hold. He's not able to complete it, and you can tell he is just exhausted on this one, and I'm told he's going to be calling it a day, at least for this route in particular. And with the clock now winding down, it seems there is time for a few more attempts, and Igor Bashansky has decided to throw yet again one more Hail Mary on Route 21. This is what he tried earlier in the competition. This is a grade V5 to V6. Again, much higher than what he is normally used to, and the exhaustion is just absolutely obvious on his face, and most importantly in terms of his weakened hand grip. He will be giving this at least one more attempt before the clock runs out. One more final Hail Mary to add a V5 to his score sheet. And again, you can just see him thinking about his foot position, but unfortunately, all the thinking, all the planning in the world just does not make up for the fact that that right hand simply does not have the energy to complete a climb of this caliber. And I am hearing from my producers right now that he is ready to call it quits for the day and submit his final score to the judges. '18th place out of 40 competitors. Overall, very happy with how it went for the most part, especially that last one, route number 20, the V5, which is like, that is kind of like, it's sort of like when you go to like a powerlifting meet and like in the meet you hit a PR. It's kind of like that for me. I mean, it took like 12 different attempts, but at the end of the day, as long as you do it, I really want to get to that like advanced level when you're actually climbing V6, V7 and onwards, like consistently, right? That shit is hard. It's kind of like in bodybuilding, right? Going from a beginner to an intermediate is not too crazy. Maybe a year or two, depending on how much you do it. Going from an intermediate to an advanced, I'll let you know when I get there, because it's hard, right? But at the end of the day, the one thing I want to say, so number one, hopefully it looks kind of cool and you enjoyed it. But number two, the number one thing I really want to say is I started this when I was like 29 or something, which isn't old by any means, don't get me wrong, but it is significantly older than usually people are when they get into a certain sport. A lot of you guys watching me probably started working out in the gym when you were like, what, like 16? I know I started when I was like 14. So to start something when you're like pushing 30 in like a year or two, it's kind of unorthodox, and it's kind of like, it's hard. But that being said, I still have been able to get to a point where like, listen, I'm never gonna make it to the Olympics, spoiler alert. I got fairly good to the point where I can do like, you know, sort of competitive climbing and not completely embarrass myself. Again, I'm not trying to say this to be like, I'm so fucking awesome, look at me. I'm trying to say this, that if you're out there and you're watching this and you want to do something similar, it doesn't have to be rock climbing, it could be some other sport, could be not even something physical, it could be something, you want to learn a freaking musical instrument, I don't care, whatever it is, you want to get into bodybuilding or fitness, you are overweight, you are a little bit older, you're like, oh, I'm too fat, too old, too this, too that. No, you're not. I just wanted to kind of say that and hopefully motivate some of you guys out there who are kind of apprehensive about trying something and afraid to embarrass yourself, afraid to look like you don't know what you're doing. Hell, when I started, and I'm like I was like in the middle of my bulk, my 2019 bulk when I was like 205 pounds, and I'm climbing like not even V1. There's actually something less than V1. There's VA and VB, which is like truly noob. I was climbing that. And even then, it was just like the most awkward thing ever because I didn't know what I was doing with pretty much the lower half of my body, and I was effectively just doing pull-ups up the wall. But you get better, as I have done, and as you guys too, again, with whatever it may be. Fitness, weight loss, lifting, other sports, career, college, you name it, you can do it. And hopefully this video has, in addition to entertain you, also kind of like 1 or 2% kind of motivated you to do that. Either way, I've rambled long enough. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, let me know down in the description box below. I'm always excited to put in more rock climbing, although sometimes I'm a little apprehensive because again, it is kind of like a lateral shift away from my regular content. So if you liked it, let me know. Always excited to hear from you, and yeah, see you next time.